I'd like to call the regular council meeting for the town of Bay-Westfield for Monday, July 11th, 2022 to order at 7 o'clock p.m. We respectfully acknowledge that Bay-Westfield exists on the traditional Woolstook-Way land. The lands of Wabanaki people are recognized in a series of peace and friendship treaties to establish an ongoing relationship of peace, friendship, and mutual respect between equal nations. The river that runs by our town is known as Woolstook, along which live Woolstook-Way, the people of the beautiful and bountiful river. We, the staff and elected representatives, pay respect to the elders, past and present, and descendants of this land. Good evening, everyone. Before we get down to business tonight, I want to take a moment to thank our Community Vitality Committee, our dedicated volunteers, our amazing staff, and incredible vendors, and all our residents who showed up to make our 2022 Canada Day celebrations the best ever. I look forward to seeing you at some of the other events we have planned for the rest of the year. Currently, we have our Unity at Park Summer Series running at Unity Park on Wednesdays, and our Friday night movies at Brundage Point. Join in and have some fun. Between these great events, our splash pad, parks, trails, water accesses, and more, there's always plenty to do in Bay-Westfield. Make sure to regularly check in our website at www.grandbaywestfield.ca or our Facebook page for details on upcoming events as they are released. And I look forward to seeing everyone around town this summer. Item 4, record of attendance. Let the record reflect that we have a full roster of attendance with the exception of Councillor Balcom, who was unable to attend this evening and sends his regrets. Item 5, agenda approval. The motion is that the Council of the Town of Bay-Westfield approve the agenda of July 11th, 2022 with the addition of 11J, UMNB Resolution Advocacy Resources. Oh, thank you, Councillor Day. Do I have a second? Thank you, Deputy Mayor Toole. All in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? Motion is carried. Thank you. Item 6. Disclosure of conflict of interest. Are there any? There being none. Item 7, public hearings, presentations, delegations, petitions. There being none, we will move on to item 8, minutes of previous meeting. 8A, regular council minutes of June 27th, 2022. Motion is that the Council of the Town of Bay-Westfield adopt the minutes of the regular meeting of June 27th, 2022. Thank you, Councillor Day. Do I have a second? Thank you, Councillor McIntosh Lawrence. All in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? Motion is carried. Thank you. Item 9, unfinished business. There being none, we'll move on to item 10, bylaws. So, John, if you could speak to this item, please.
Yes, Your Worship. We're finally bringing to a close the long journey of repealing the frontage fees on Colonel Ace. We're also amending the zoning bylaw. It's about housekeeping, really, about suites and things like that. And then finally, the subdivision bylaw as well is being amended, some housekeeping. Plus, it also has language in there around the frontage fees on Colonel Ace.
Thank you. So I will read the motion. Third reading by title of each of the 3 bylaws, 121A, 122B, and 124. 10A1, third readings by title. Municipal Plan Bylaw number 121A, amendment to the Municipal Plan Bylaw number 121. Zoning Bylaw number 122B, amendment to the Zoning Bylaw number 122. Subdivision Bylaw number 124. Do I have a motion? Thank you, Deputy Mayor Toole. Do I have a second? Thank you, Councillor Bellmans. Any questions or comments on the motion? I would just like to say that as a council, sometimes you make pivotal decisions, and there are pivotal moments in the mandate of the council, and this is one of the ones that has come to fruition after many months of heavy lifting by both council, by PAC, by staff. And I'm just thrilled that we are finally at this moment. The frontage fees were embedded in 3 different bylaws, and it took a lot of work to get to this moment. And I want to thank everyone that was involved in making that pivotal decision in the first place, and everybody that got us to this point in time. Do we have any other questions or comments on the motion? There being none, all in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? Motion is carried. Thank you, council. Item 11, new business recommendations. 11A, Sears Subdivision, Valley View Drive. As recommended by the Planning Advisory Committee, the following motion is provided for council's consideration. That the council of the town of Grand Bay-Westfield accept 160.16 square meters as land for public purposes to be applied to the existing Valley View Estates land bank located off Adjournment Drive for the creation of one new building lot out of PID number 30003982/302172228 on Valley View Drive, with approval of the final subdivision plan by the development officer, to be subject to recording the new civic address of 36 Valley View Drive and a 5-meter wide public utility easement along the lot frontage in favor of Bell Reliant, Rogers Cable, and NB Power to be recorded on the final subdivision plan. Do I have a motion? Thank you, Councillor McIntosh Lawrence. Do I have a second? Thank you, Councillor Day. John, can you speak to the motion, please?
Your worship, typically when there is development that goes on, the town's preferred method for land for public use is cash in lieu. However, going back to the beginning of this, a 5-acre parcel has been set aside for land for public use at the end of Edgemont Drive. And so there's this 5 acres there, but what's happening now is that even though there's this 5 acres, we have to formally allocate a part of that land as part of land for public use. So that's what's happening tonight. I think this may be too strong in language, but think of it as having our reserves that we have for the town. For an example, we have $1 million in reserves, and usually it sits there. But we may decide to ask the CFO as an example that, even though we have $1 million in reserves, we want to allocate $160,000 for a park. So that even though there's $1 million, this is formally being allocated somewhere. Same principle applies here. Yes, there's this 5 acres of land. This 160 meters squared is actually being allocated as part of the town's designated land for public use.
Thank you, John. Do we have any questions or comments on the motion? There being none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Contrary minded? Motion is carried. Thank you, and thank you, John, for that explanation. Sometimes I find these things confusing, coming at this being somewhat new, and so like a real language explanation goes a long way, so thank you. 11B, compensation review. The motion is that the council of the town of Grand Bay-Westfield authorize the mayor and CAO to enter into a contract with KBRS to complete a compensation review for a cost not exceeding $11,800. Do I have a motion? Thank you, Councillor Day. Do I have a second? Thank you, Deputy Mayor Toole. John, can you speak to the motion, please?
Thank you, Your Worship. We're doing this for a couple of reasons. One, this is Hampton's initiative, and by partnering with them, we greatly reduce the costs of doing the compensation review. So there's significant savings. This isn't a budgeted event that we're doing. And another reason that we're doing this is to ensure that as the community grows, that our employees are paid fairly. Are they paid equitably compared to the other types of communities that we have in the province that deliver the same types of programs and services, then also for external comparison. And I think one of the more important reasons that we're doing this is for local government reform. We're going to have a lot of new residents that may look at how much staff are being paid and say, well, really, is this appropriate amount that they're being paid? And we can, show through this report that, compared to other communities like Grand Bay-Westfield, our staff are being paid fairly. So this is about transparency to demonstrate that our town staff are not being paid too much or too low. And if that is the case, then what we want to do is ensure that over time, we can bring about some type of adjustment.
Thank you, John. Do we have any questions or comments on the motion?
We've had compensation reviews for counselors sitting around the table. And we have looked at compensation in the past a long time ago. And I'm very happy because as we grow and we've had new people, we need to know that we're doing the right thing. And we want to make sure that we keep the staff we have. And in this day and age of COVID, it's important that they are paid fairly.
I completely agree that it's about transparency. One of the values we have as a council is transparency. It's about fiscal responsibility, making sure that, you know, we're not way over and above what we should be paying people. It's also about competitiveness, because as John mentioned, the job market is extremely tight, and we have to fight with people, fight against, you know, other employers for good people. It's about fairness. One of the best investments you can make is in the people that, you know, that work for you and work for the people of the town. So it's all of those things wrapped up into one. So I'm happy to see this item go through. Any other questions or comments on the item? There being none, all in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? Motion is carried. Thank you, council. Item 11C, UMNV resolutions, strengthening municipalities. The motion is that the council of the town of Grand Bay-Westfield approve the strengthening communities resolution for the UMNV AGM and that it be forwarded to the Zone 7 meeting for approval. We have a motion?
Moved.
Thank you, Councillor Bailmans. We have a second? Thank you, Councillor McIntosh Lawrence. John, can you speak to the motion, please?
Yes, Your Worship. There is one municipal association representing municipalities across Canada, from the Pacific to the Atlantic and up to the Arctic. And here in New Brunswick, we have 3 municipal associations. City representing 8 municipalities, UMNB, which represents about 61 municipalities and shrinking, and with about 33% of the population, give or take a little bit. And then there's the Francophonie Association that does the rest. Your Worship, I would suggest that it could be argued that that municipalities would be more effective in their lobbying, in their advocacy work, if there was one municipal association representing all municipalities speaking with one strong, undivided voice.
Thank you, John. And I have to agree. It's the same principle as regional collaboration.
Yes.
You know, we're more powerful together as a region, and the same principle applies, in my opinion, to the municipal associations. Do we have any questions or comments on this motion? There being none, all in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? Motion is carried. Thank you, council. Item 11D, 2023 tentative Capital Street improvements. The motion is that the council of the town of Grand Bay-Westfield authorize Dillon Consulting to perform detailed designs for the following list of streets proposed for 2023 capital improvements. 1. Entrance to fire station number 2. 2. Ononet Road, Nerpus Road to NB Southern Tracks. 3. Prosser Court. 4. Tilsley Place. 5. Rosemere Drive. 6. La Croix Drive, Route 102 to Windsor Court. 7. Maple Row. 8. Andrew Court. 9. Majestic Drive, Englewood Drive to Baycrest Drive. Do I have a motion? Thank you, Deputy Mayor Toole. Do I have a second? Thank you, Councillor Day. John, could you speak to the motion, please?
Your Worship, one of the changes that we've implemented here is to do design work in the preceding year. So these projects represent about $30,000 in design work, or give or take about $600,000 of capital investment at today's dollars, or maybe the spring's dollars. Things have changed. So we're just asking we begin the work, and then when we go to budget in the fall, we'll have some accurate numbers, hopefully. because there's, we've been surprised a couple of times with changes in prices to asphalt as an example. So we're just trying to get some accurate numbers for the budget and also be prepared so that when January comes along, we can be one of the first ones to put these projects out for tender. Typically, or statistically anyways, the earlier you get projects out for tender, the better the pricing is then later in the season.
Thanks. John, could you maybe explain to anybody watching how we come up with this list in the first place?
Yeah, and I'll ask the Works Commissioner to correct me if I'm wrong. We being the Works Commissioner along with our consulting engineers, maintain an ongoing condition assessment of all the streets and roads and subsurface infrastructure in the town. And then what they do is, Bruce probably has done this over the past 6 weeks or so, something like that. He's driven the roads to confirm that the condition assessment that he had coming into the year is still relevant. Because sometimes, a road may have a bad winter and break up, or a bad spring or something like that. So this is based on his ongoing list of priority streets and then adjusted on a yearly basis. That's where we're at now. Is there anything you want to add to that, Bruce?
No, that pretty much covers it. I guess with that, just an explanation is, we have a street condition report and we update it each year, but we don't do the physical update for doing all the streets, because in year one, we figure if we take the top ones off, the next streets underneath are still bad. So the list is still fairly relevant, but every 3 years, we'll do an actual physical street evaluation, and then we'll readjust and go from there.
And that's due in 2023, isn't it?
It is.
So, when we say that we're authorizing Dylan to perform detailed designs, what does that mean? Are we resurfacing the street completely? Are we just repairing it? What does this mean to the people that live on these streets?
Well, on these streets here that are in there, it is resurfacing, but part of the detailed design is we're going and we're inspecting the assets under there, so there may have to be storm sewer improvements, replacements, whatever that we want to do at the same time.
Right.
So for this list, it's mainly street resurfacing, but also part of the design, we'll look at the underground infrastructure to see if that needs to be replaced at the same time.
So they may see camera trucks on their street, the cameras going underneath. There may be surveyors on the street getting measurements and elevations. So those are some of the things that they may see in their neighborhood for the rest of the summer. Well, they won't last the rest of the summer, but they'll see them at some point over the rest of the summer.
Right, so this is the list of things that we're planning on doing. But if asphalt goes up 45% or something along those lines, what happens then?
We're not saying we're planning to do, we're saying that we would like to budget for these. And then if we either don't have enough money, then going from the bottom up, those projects may be eliminated because we have a fixed budget and we want to try and keep within that. Likewise, it was the first or second year I think the first full summer I was here, we were actually able to do more asphalting than we anticipated. So it works both ways.
Yes, I remember that. I remember watching council and Mayor LaLucia looked at the numbers, she said, is that right? Are we getting a lower grade of asphalt than we're used to? But it was just that the asphalt prices were really good, and unfortunately it's the opposite for us right now.
Yes, exactly. So these are what we're proposing to do. There's no guarantee that these will be done, just pricing.
Thank you. Councilor Evans?
An update on Van Road also, have an update on that street to be done eventually, or?
So the goal, the Works Commissioner will correct me if I'm wrong, we still don't have all the necessary right-of-ways. So we are not able to do the work until that's been
So are
achieved.
we working with the residents on the street to try to get this done, or are we gonna?
Well, the last I heard is the property owner wasn't willing to do that.
So just then a few up or a couple of them, or one, or how many left to sign off with it?
I'm not sure. Is it one
I
or?
think there was 2 or 3, but they were all sort of, if party 8 does, then I will. It was kind of one of those things.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate because Pamdenic's a major road really for us. And it's unfortunate it's being held up.
And put off for many years, so
Yeah.
that just.
If Councillor Day and you remember, I did bring suggestion to the previous council that we develop a bylaw for expropriation, and the council today wasn't in favor of that.
But we should be revisited again and be.
I can bring it back to council if that's what you like, but that's
I think they waited too long.
not always the best way.
Yeah, I know, but they waited a long time.
Yeah.
Expropriation, we've tried to avoid doing that as much as possible.
Yes. Do we have any other questions or comments on the motion?
The work done this year on the catch basins at the upper part of Majestic looked very good. And sometimes with the heavy rain we've even had this summer, I don't think a rock has moved, so it's good.
Thank you, Councillor Day. Any other questions or comments on the motion? There being none, all in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? Motion is carried. Thank you, Council. Item 11E, digital banking services. The motion is that the Council of the Town of Bay-Westfield sign the electronic banking service request, integrated payment service request, and government tax payment and filing service enrollment forms to allow for the use of digital payment methods through Scotiabank. Do I have a, thank you, Councillor McIntosh Lawrence. Thank you, Councillor Days, for seconding that. John, can you speak to the item, please?
Yes, Your Worship, currently we pay through paper checks, and we're not able to always take payments. Staff is paid via checks. We don't have a whole lot of flexibility how we can do business. In fact, it was interesting to learn that we have a special, I'm going to use the word dispensation from CRA to be able to submit our stuff via paper. So all we're trying to do, one of the reasons I was brought in was to modernize the organization, and this is a step in that direction.
Thank you, John. Do you have any questions or comments on the motion?
No.
I'm happy to see this. Yes, I think we're all happy to see this. It'll give us a lot more flexibility and residents flexibility once this is all set up.
Your Worship, yeah, we'll have a lot more flexibility for our residents to be able to pay.
Yeah.
They'll have options.
So online, when we say option, are we talking like email transfers or?
The way I understand it, and the CFO will correct me if I'm wrong, we'll have a designated email address for email transfers. People will be able to submit payment online through one of, I think, 5 banks. I don't know about the credit union in the area, so it should be able to be done. And of course, they can always come in and do it the old-fashioned way, which a lot of people do.
So again, just increased flexibility and speed of we all do things digitally now, so it's nice that we'll be able to do this at the municipal level too. So I want to thank staff for putting this together. Our new CFO, James Barrington, thank you very much for bringing us into the 20th century, not just the 21st, but we're getting there. So, any other questions or comments on the motion? There being none, all in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? Motion is carried. Thank you. Item 11F, financial report, second quarter. The motion is that the Council of Bay-Westfield receive and file the 2022 second quarter financial report as presented. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Councillor Day. Do I have a second? Thank you, Councillor McIntosh Lawrence. John, can you speak to the motion, please?
Thanks, Your Worship. We're on track right now for being on budget, actually having a very small surplus, like it's 0.2%, so we're not talking a lot. I would want to stress that I would very much consider this fragile. And before I turn it over to our CFO to explain, I guess I just want to highlight council discretion, that some of those are expenses that have been unforeseen for a variety of reasons. They've been prudent investments that help us understand like the government reform or the snow control and stuff like that. But anyways, I'll turn it over to our CFO and he can speak further to it.
Thank you, John. Your Worship, the report included here is an update from the report that was prepared at the end of April. And so staff went through the budget and reviewed all their budget items. As earlier in April, inflationary pressures and supply constraints have continued to put pressure on the budget. But administration has worked extremely well to mitigate these issues. And as the CEO mentioned, there is a small surplus projected, but that's very small, and we must continue to work hard to manage our expenses.
Thank you, James.
So, Your Worship, I have asked the leadership team to put the brakes on some types of spending. We want to do that, and I will caution council now that surplus we see, I did use the word fragile. We have a retirement, which means there's going to be some extra expenses related to the retirement and to the hiring of and the recruitment of a new person to fill that position. So you can almost say well, it's your.
Thank you, John, and I don't think anybody is unaware of the inflationary pressures that regular households are facing. Municipalities are no different. Like you said, when we recently did work on River Valley Drive on the provincial highway, and that was what, $40,000 more than we had budgeted.
So,
based on
yes, Your Worship, so that project, typically we spend $100,000 a year, and our Works Commissioner, kudos to him, he was able to find $40,000 in other parts of his budget so we could do the work as he had originally planned. So we ended up spending $140,000. And that was primarily due to asphalt, that increase. So, congrats to our Works Commissioner for finding that money to ensure that that's the primary road that was covered.
Yeah, no, and that's just an example of the things that we're gonna have to be very mindful of in the months coming for the rest of the year, because I don't see any end to that. Gas is going up, diesel is going up. It's just costs are going up everywhere, so we will have to be very vigilant.
Hats off to the team, the leadership team, our CFO and CAO, because when I looked at it, I was expecting a deficit. And then if anybody's been reading the paper, Chris Van insists there's a $300,000 deficit. And with municipal reform, how can I put it? They can say all they want that it's not going to be downloading expenses to us, but we spent a lot of money understanding and having reports done so we knew what we were facing. And so as a result, it has to be paid somewhere. So thank you very much.
Yes, just wanna highlight your kudos to the team for getting us to this point with a fragile surplus, but a small surplus nonetheless. We have any other questions or comments on the motion? There being none, all in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? Motion is carried, thank you. Item 11G, appointment of town's planner. The motion is that the council of the town of Bay-Westfield appoint Jennifer Brown of Dillon Consulting as the town's planner effective January 1, 2023. With the motion?
So.
Thank you, Councillor Bellman. Do I have a second? Thank you, Councillor Day. John?
Yeah, Your Worship, I'm being proactive here, council. There's a shortage of planners, not only in New Brunswick, but across the country. And so what we're doing here is 6 months out from the implementation of municipal reform, engaging a planner to ensure that we're compliant with legislation that takes effect. The town has been working with Jennifer, I think, since 2020 or 2019. I feel that, we have an excellent working relationship with her, and she has a good rapport with the council. I'd just like to point out that the cost of this may surpass $14,000. We're budgeting $14,000. $4,000 is for the retainer, and then $10,000 cap on services that are being provided. And that $10,000 is based on the typical use of municipalities in southwestern New Brunswick. There's only been one municipality in the last, I think she said about 6-7 years that surpassed $10,000. So we should be okay, but nonetheless, we're gonna be compliant, and we're not gonna be scrambling for a planner and left without a chair at the musical planner game.
Yeah, I just wanted to commend you for being so proactive on this. And your proactive management style of staff and council this is an example of that. Like you said, John, we don't want to be stuck at the table with no planner at all. That would not be very good.
Precisely.
Do we have any questions or comments on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? Motion is carried, thank you. And I should mention too that Jennifer is the professional that walked us through the removal of the infrastructure charge to all of those 3 bylaws alongside our development officer and PAC. So I have a lot of confidence in Jennifer. Item 11H rather, appointment of additional signing officer. The motion is that the council of the town of Bay-Westfield direct the Bank of Nova Scotia to add the treasurer, James Barrington, to the list of persons with signing authority on all accounts held with the Bank of Nova Scotia. Do I have a motion? Thank you, Deputy Mayor Toole. Do I have a second? Thank you, Councillor Bellmans. John, can you speak to the motion, please?
Yes, Your Worship. First, I just want to say thank you to Marcia for the dedication she's shown to the town. She's let us know that she's retiring, and she's one of the appointed officials who has signed the authority. And I've talked to our CFO about it in the past, and now's the right time to bring her on board as a signing authority. It increases our organizational capacity, especially with Marcia retiring.
Thank you. And I just wanna highlight what John said about Marcia's loyalty to the town of Bay-Westfield and everybody that lives here. We have to, she's not gone yet, but I do wanna formally thank her for everything that she's done for us, as a council and for everybody that lives in the town. There's not many people that are as loyal to this organization as Marcia is and has been. Do we have any questions or comments on the motion? There being none, all in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? Motion is carried, thank you. Item 11I, appointment of assistant clerk. The motion is that the council of the town of Bay-Westfield thank Marcia Nation for her many years of service as assistant clerk and repeal her appointment due to retirement, and that the council of the town of Bay-Westfield temporarily appoint Brock Belding as assistant clerk until June 2023. Do I have a motion? Thank you, Councillor McIntosh Lawrence. Do I have a second? Thank you, Councillor Day. John?
Your Worship, again, Marcia Mason's a key employee here. So we're just want to thank her publicly and formally through the resolution. And then the new assistant clerk will be our admin assistant, who's currently on mat leave. And so we need Brock, our communications officer, Director of Communications, to be a bridge until she returns. And this is a legislative position. It's one that's needed. There cannot be a meeting of council without either the clerk or the assistant clerk present. I do hope to take a holiday this summer. So we're doing this appointment so that if there's a holiday and I'm away, council can still do their business.
Thank you, John. Do we have any questions or comments on the motion? There being none, all in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? Motion is carried, thank you, and I just want to thank Brock for taking this on in the interim. Thank you, Brock. Item 11J, UMNB Resolution, Advocacy Resources. The motion is that the council of the town of Bay-Westfield approve the Advocacy Resources Resolution for the UMNB AGM and that it be forwarded to the Zone 7 meeting for approval. May I have a motion? Thank you, Councillor McIntosh Lawrence. Do I have a second? Thank you, Deputy Mayor Toole. John, can you speak to the resolution, please?
I think surprise would be a good adjective to describe how I felt when I learned that UMNB is supposed to advocate, do research, professional development, provide insider analysis, connect municipal leaders to exchange knowledge and solutions, and inform members, communicate members. Does all this with only 2 employees and no real budget to speak of. So I really wondered how effective the organization would be that's under-resourced. I think the executive director is doing a good job given the resources he has at hand, but really we need a stronger voice, we need an effective voice, we need an informed voice, and the executive director does his very best, but at the end of the day, it's just him that does the bulk of the work with next to no budget. So really, this is an ask on the membership's part, Your Worship, to properly fund the organization so that it can do its purpose. If you want, I can read the purpose.
Yes, John, if you would not mind, that would be.
UNB's purpose is to advocate for strong, sustainable communities throughout the province, unite communities of all sizes, represent members' interests and concerns, ensure local priorities are on the provincial agenda, connect municipal leaders to exchange knowledge and solutions, and inform members in government through research, professional development, and insider analysis. All that, 2 people with a budget that basically covers their salaries and their travel.
Yeah, this is an important resolution because if I've learned anything over the last year, it's how important advocacy is. Going through local governance reform as an example, UNB has been key in connecting leaders and relaying our concerns and our questions to the provincial government. So having them resourced properly, I think, is absolutely crucial with everything that's going on. Yes, John.
If you don't mind me adding, Your Worship, the Cities of New Brunswick Association, 8 cities, I don't know, I'm not sure how many people they represent. They have an executive director, 1 person, and then the president helps. And the Francophonie Association, Association Francophonie Municipality New Brunswick has 7 employees, and I'm not certain about this, but I believe 4 of those employees are related to their insurance business. The argument could be made that each of the associations respectively is under-resourced, and you go back to the resolution that we discussed earlier, there really needs to be perhaps a unification per the purpose of the UNB purpose clause to ensure their effectiveness and efficacy.
Thank you, John. Yeah, it's a large mandate and it's completely under-resourced. I would agree with that. Do we have any questions or comments on the motion?
Just imagine what we could do if they all came together and worked as one. Yeah.
Any further questions or comments on the motion? There being none, all in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? Motion is carried. Thank you, Council. Item 12, bills for payment. The motion is that the Council of the Town of Grand Bay-Westfield authorize the July 11, 2022 bills for payment as presented in the amount for $61,444.55.
So moved.
Thank you, Councillor Bellmans. Do we have a second? Thank you, Councillor Day. Any questions or comments on the motion?
Number 26 and number 34, paint.
The black paint, I don't know if you've driven down Ingleside Road. Remember, council made the decision last year for traffic calming there, to slow traffic down, make it safer for cyclists and pedestrians. The lines were painted down the middle, so it created a broad thing. We're changing the lines and we had to paint over, excuse me, the previous lines which weren't painted last year. So that's what that black paint was used for on the
It
asphalt.
looks all narrow now.
Sorry?
It looks all narrow.
Yeah.
If you try to go by side getting here tonight, it's narrow looks, but.
Yeah, you're gonna slow down.
So if we do this on Englewood Drive, would we do this on other streets like Olmsted Drive also down the road or something?
That's potential, that hasn't been brought to our attention, but again, that was something that we'd have to take a look at to see what would be feasible or not feasible. But first, is there really a problem there or not? So is there anything you want to add to that?
No, I think you covered it right there, and again, that was the idea there last year, and we did put money into the budget to buy that paint. But the last fall, again, for traffic calming measures, and the bike receiving speeding, was we didn't paint Inglewood Drive last year, so it would fade.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't be as bright when we covered it over this year, and as you mentioned there, account for Bailman, we did kind of put the lines out, so there is room for cars to pass at the appropriate speed to calm traffic, so it does, even with the dots themselves, appears to be working. Once we get a full line, it should be good.
It seems like being more chaotic, I think, for people driving, just in my own opinion, with people walking both sides of the road and such a narrow lane to drive. It might,
But it's really psychological, because the lanes aren't any narrower than what you would find on other roads. And that's part of the psychology of creating a safe driving environment, is it's the perception. So people think it's narrower, they're automatically going to take their foot off the gas pedal to slow down because they've got the kid on the bike there outside the line, and they've got the older person over there out for their evening stroll, and they think, oh, there's an ongoing car. So it's about the psychology of creating a safe driving environment.
remains to be seen. I'd like to see when the outcome happens and see what people say about it. Nice to know.
Yeah, sorry, what was the other number?
There's 4. So paint again, more paint, just wondered the track.
Gray traction paint?
No, that's something that we've done over the years. If you notice, if you drive along Wolfsburg Drive, we have some steep driveways that cross concrete to the sidewalk.
Yeah.
And the slope is at a point where it's become too steep.
Yeah.
So we put it's no skidding traction paint on those sections, which is gray if you see them.
Yeah.
So we do those each year.
It's really smart.
With traction for pedestrians walking on those.
See a lawsuit on that. Keep money up.
That's what that's.
Yeah, it's good. Thank you.
Wait, any other questions or comments on the motion? There being none, all in favor? Contrary minded? Motion is carried. Thank you, council. Item 13, consent agenda. 13A, Cascade Report, Council Resolutions Directions. 13B, Cascade Report, CAO Plan Progress Report, and consent agenda. The motion is the council of the town of Bay-Westfield receive and file the consent agenda items for July 11, 2022. Do I have a motion? Thank you, Deputy Mayor Toole. Was that second, Councillor Day? Thank you. Any questions or comments on the motion? There being none, all in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? Motion is carried. Thank you. Item 14, council reports. Let's start with Councillor Day today.
Well, no, I'm not incognito. I've just had cataract surgery, so the lights in here are a little bright. But I'd like to hats off to Stephanie and the team on Canada Day. I thought it was a really good event. Yes, some lineups were a little longer than what we would have liked, but it was really, really fun to see the town coming back after COVID. So hats off to the team. I had a lot of fun tormenting the kids.
Thank you, Councillor Day. Councillor McIntosh Lawrence.
I guess my big one was Canada Day. It was, by all accounts, I think a success. I've only heard good things about it. I really want to thank town staff and council that helped plan and were there that day to pull off a successful day, and hopefully we can do it again next year.
Thank you, sir. Councillor Bell.
Well, again, not much to say, but the Iggy Crosby had a tournament this Saturday, it's on the 16th at 10 a.m. They were having a tournament event for the pro kids. So, I got another thing to say about somebody in the neighborhood, in the community, Catherine Tunney, we've seen her on the news lately. She's doing her school I thought it was pretty neat to see her on the news, small girl in Ottawa, and pretty nice to see that from our community, yeah.
Oh, that's good. Maybe you want to tell anybody that might not know Catherine what she was in the news for?
Oh, she's a reporter.
Yeah. Okay.
I see our news from our area, I want to see that, so.
Absolutely. Thank you for bringing that to our attention, Councillor Bellman. Deputy Mayor Toole.
I just had a regional facilities committee meeting, was held our spring meeting this last week, which is one thing we're gonna do. The other things were all fun stuff, and again, I want to second what everybody said about Canada Day. The festivities were great, and I had the honor of giving remarks at the Nelson Cup lacrosse tournament on behalf of the town, and it was really well attended and the games were excellent. So I encourage anybody next year to come out and see. And there's a lot of Grand Bay-Westfield, or I don't know a lot, there are a few definite Grand Bay-Westfield athletes who play on those teams, which it was quite something to see. So that was, I guess, my highlight.
Okay, thank you, Deputy Mayor Toole. And again, as always, I want to thank everyone on council for all of the efforts that you put forth to be in the community, talking to people and going to events and going to meetings and being generally involved so that, Grand Bay-Westfield is at the forefront of people's minds. It increases our profile, it gets us listening and talking with residents all over the place, and it's all of those things that you do are incredibly important for the vitality of our community as a whole. So my council report isn't too long today. It's there are a couple of interesting highlights over and above my usual stuff. One was I met with members of the Municipal Association in British Columbia via Zoom. The new Regional Service Commission structure and mandate is based on the British Columbia Regional District model. So I felt it's important that we have our good understanding of what works there and what doesn't, so that when we're going through this local governance reform process, we can advocate for the best model possible for the town and for the province as a whole. So that was a pretty interesting meeting, and that will lead into other meetings as well, and possibly a speaker series at the UMNB AGM in October. Again, Canada Day, I have the privilege of presiding at the Canada Day event and getting to talk and see a whole bunch of people, some of whom, again, I'm sure everybody's in this position we haven't seen in a long time, and our staff was amazing, our community vitality committee was amazing, council was there doing, all kinds of different things, and we had some amazing vendors as well. It was top notch, and I have a lot of people telling me it was the best Canada Day celebration ever. So it was a great job done by everybody, and it was just lovely. Again, I'm sitting on the UMNB Ad Hoc Equalization Advisory Committee, so we'll be advocating for a fair and transparent formula that will hopefully result in revenue stability for the town going forward, and my first meeting with that tomorrow. And with respect to parks, I toured the dog park twice in the last few days, and I just want to highlight that if there are issues with any of our parks or other amenities that council and staff should know about, please reach out to the town directly or to one of us directly. That's the best avenue for getting things done. That's how we find out about them, when we hear about them. You have to reach out directly, and I know staff is incredibly responsive, and I know every member of council is incredibly responsive as well. So that's my report for this council meeting. And so I guess we'll move on to item 15, business arising from committee of the whole. There being none, we will move on to item 16, which is adjournment. The motion is that the council of the town of Grand Bay-Westfield adjourn the meeting at 7:48 p.m. Do I have a motion? Thank you, Councillor Day. Do I have a second? Councillor Bellmans? All in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? Motion is carried. Thank you very much, council, and good night, everybody.